Hello, folks. We are live. So here we are, episode 4. I'm Bobby Clary, and this is my beautiful bride, Tiffany.
Sorry.
Why are you moving my water?
The top was
I
there.
need it.
It was annoying.
So today we're coming to you to talk about communication with kiddos. Um, very, very valuable subject, right?
Yep.
So explain.
Well, you don't want your kids learning certain things from their friends at school, and you also want your kids to know that no matter what they do,
Do it next to me. There you
okay, no matter what they do, good or bad, that they can come to you with it, they can talk to you about it, and they're not always not going to do things behind your back because they are kids, especially when they're teenagers. But from experience, they will eventually come to you and be like, "Hey, mom,
go.
I screwed up." So,
Yeah, notice how she emphasized, "Hey, mom," because in our house, this is a time of transparency. Um, Normally, she is the guardian, the homeschool teacher, the baby chaser, and the whole 9 yards. And then dad's at work all day. Dad comes home, and dad's the enforcer. And that's not necessarily how it is. I mean, that's like the overall view, and like, what people would see on the outside looking in. But my kids see me as the enforcer. And so they have this little bit of an issue. Like, unless they're really, really concerned about something, they come to her. And then when it's a big thing, they come to me. And I think it's because she's like, maybe you should ask your dad. Um, but my kids, like, they've, I don't know where they get it from or why, but they always tell me that I'm intimidating. And I just have to tell them, I'm not intimidating. You're intimidated. You're scared to come to me. And there's a respect and there's a level of fear, I guess, that they kind of feel like they're afraid to talk to me about certain things, but I have to reassure them all the time. Look, you've got to talk to me. You've got to talk to your mom. We've got to be able to come to an agreement where I don't overrule her and she doesn't overrule me, but we talk about the things that are going on, right?
mhm.
Uh, we have to make sure that our kids get good information, real information. So, those of you that have kids at home, those of you that have adult kids now, have been through this before, and in the past, we were kids once too, right? We're so young and beautiful that we're still kids, right?
We are.
Yeah,
I
right. Yeah. So, um, a lot of folks with older children, and then those of you that want to admit your past, you didn't always get good information. You talk to your friends about the hard situations or the things that you were embarrassed to talk to your parents about, and so you got bad information. Now, some of it may have been good, and say some of it may have some of the folks giving you advice may have had good intentions, but it most of it ended up bad advice and bad information. So that's what we want to talk to you about today, is just making sure that your kids have a safe place. Make sure that you keep that communication open. And yes, when they start getting a little older and they start becoming preteen and teenagers, mom and dad are the most popular ones to talk to, right?
Yep.
It's so easy as a preteen and teenager to talk to your mom and dad. So also in that, there's a big responsibility in the family. Um, grandparents, grandparents, listen up. Grandparents, stop trying to be your grandchildren's friends and overstep the boundaries, because that's a big problem in the homes. Is that we went through this for a while, um, and we had a situation where my mom did the very best she could and did the very best with what she had. And I don't fault my mom in any regard to how she raised us or what she did. But there is a place where you have to come to, um, like you have to have a come to Jesus meeting at one point and say, look, this is us. I might still be your baby, but this is us. No, mom can't get in the middle of it. Dad can't get in the middle of it on both sides. And grandparents will overstep their boundaries, right?
Yeah.
And there becomes a communication issue there. And, we're not going to go too far into it. But the thing is that, my rules at home would be a little bit different than being at a grandparent's house. And that's okay to a certain extent. Sometimes you got to kind of pull on the reins a little bit and say, hey, this conflicts with what I've got going on at home. And again, this is us. We have to make sure that grandparents, aunts and uncles, cousins don't cross that line. Mom and dad should be the ones, simply put, those of you that are outside mom and dad in that circle, the very best thing is to say, here's a little bit of advice, but take this. Go talk to your mom and dad. Make a phone call. Y'all want to put everything else in the world on Facebook and Instagram and all the social medias and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Then tell them, go talk to your mom and dad. And we can see the families support each other again. So Tiffany, I've said a lot already. What is the hardest conversation that you've had with our kids so far?
Hardest conversation? Tough. I don't know. I guess it would be
3 letters, or is that not the hardest?
Sex was not the hardest. That was so we started out telling our kids when they were 8. We have books that we go through. It recommends you start at 8. Now you don't go into the full details of what it is, but for the age. And then at 10, we went all the way, told them what it all was, because I mean they're talking about it real young. My 7-year-old came to me the other day and he's like, Mom, I know what sex is. And I was like, hold up.
What?
So that was a great time for communication because I sat down on the coffee table. He was in the floor and I was like, okay, well, can you tell Mama what that is? And I mean, he didn't know. He just said, well, it's when you're married and you get naked and make out. So, yep, that's exactly what it is. That's what it is.
That's the homeschool version, folks.
No, but for real, yeah, we did. Bobby had the talk with Jacob all the way that we went through the book. It was very graphic. And then when Allie was there, I went through the talk with her. But for me, it wasn't difficult because I want them to know that it's a good thing when you're married, when it's the right person. You don't just go around doing that with everybody. But when God's in it and you're married, then it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. And I want them to know that. I don't want them to think,
And so, as a side note, that book that we used came from our homeschool material. So it wasn't like we went out to a gas station and bought a book.
Right.
It's well put together.
It's Christian based.
It's Christian based,
like biblical.
But I think it helped us to have a game plan.
Yeah.
To be able to stay on track and not just be embarrassed and go, well, what do we do? How do I answer this question? So it provided a lot of information that that they needed. And we've got 2 more that in the next year, one will start going through the book, and then we'll wait a little longer and he'll go through some more of it. And so that is a tough situation. That is a tough conversation to have. But in the grand scheme of things, we want to make sure that you have good communication with your kids. We talked about in our first episode that we struggle big time with trying to have a family meal. And sometimes our family meal is eating fast food in the car, going somewhere, or having to, be in a rush. We got to drop one kid off at work, and then another kid's got to go somewhere else. And So we got to eat. So we just need to make sure that we hold tight to when we sit down and have a meal together, it's a safe place. Now it's time for conversation. Whatever questions you have, whatever concerns you have, and you're not allowed to get mad. When Tiffany asks me questions or something that's on her mind, I'm not allowed to get mad. And then the same thing with everybody involved, everybody in our family that's sitting down to that dinner table or at that console and cup holder,
Yeah.
right? Because we're all on the go, we're all busy, right? So you just got to make sure that once you establish it, you keep it. You know, they can't think that this is a one-time thing or that when they've been good for a few days that you reward them with good communication. It's got to be completely open and unconditional.
Right. And it's never too early. Like the earlier you start, so parents with super young kids don't tune out. Is that the right word? Anyways, don't get off. Keep listening because
don't change the channel.
Yeah, anyways, it's never too early. So example, yesterday we went riding side by side dirt bikes and Joshua, the 2-year-old, so weird.
We had fun.
He rode with me all day and so last night I asked him like, Josh, did you have fun yesterday? And at first he's like, yeah, I did. And then a few minutes later he came back to me. He goes, well, I kind of didn't because it was a little too bumpy. So while it wasn't like a super important conversation, you still have to know that they can come back with the truth. Mm-hmm. So that when they're older, like we hold nothing back in our family. We are an open book. If you've ever been around us,
especially this one, has no filter.
I don't, and I can't help it. It's a good thing sometimes, but anyways, yeah. So we're an open book. Anybody who's ever been around us know that there's nothing we as a family don't talk about.
Right. And it's healthy.
We don't keep secrets.
No, it's very healthy. And you know, there's a big breakdown in communication all across the board. In homes, in jobs, everywhere. There's a huge communication problem. And you know that it's a struggle because so many people are so ready to be on the defense about something that they're not really listening to what you say. They're listening for keywords and phrases so they can attack.
Right.
Most of the time, when you have a conversation with somebody, you notice that they're off in left field. You know, it's not like squirrel, but they're thinking of their reply. They're not listening to what you say because they're already trying to think of how they're going to answer you and not getting the full story. And we've got to do better. We all have to do better. The communication is what brings us together, and keeping that line open will continue to build the relationship, not just build a friendship, but build a relationship where you talk back and forth. Because a one-way conversation, which I do a lot of the times because I'm a talker, okay? I think Clary in some other language just means talker.
Amen. Not gonna lie. True story.
And I guess I get it honest. My grandmother, my dad, it goes down the line. Talkers, you know. So anything else? What else do we need to make sure that we pay attention to?
Also, as parents, so another story. I like stories. This summer, Jacob got caught in trouble. Like there was no denying it. Mama saw it. So he didn't deny it. And my initial reaction was anger. Like he knew that I was angry, but then I just had to step back. I brought him home and I was like, look, we'll talk about this when Mama's not mad. I called his daddy. I let him know what was going on. And I was like, look, I'm telling you while you're at work so that your anger can kind of boil down a little bit.
That was the best situation because it gave me time to really process and not just be fiery reactive. I was able to really sort out my thoughts. And it's like, you know, business wise, you want to send that nasty email, you want to send that funky text message. But if you like type it out, say what you want to say, and then take a break, read it again, and then you're going to be like, oh no, maybe I shouldn't send that.
Response. You have to watch your response, because it'll also, next time they're like, well, if I don't get caught, I'm not saying anything, because they're going to blow up anyway, so it's not worth it.
Yeah, and then they'll start hiding more things from you.
Yeah.
So that's another positive for this open communication, is that if you punish them less when they come to you, or you work it out. I'm not saying that everybody just gets a little pop on the hand and there's no punishment involved, because there's always a consequence for your action.
Yeah.
And so lying to me is absolute tip top offense. Do not lie. And when you're caught, you can't lie. So you might as well talk it out. You might as well go on and come clean, and we'll get all this out in the open. We've had a couple situations with the oldest so far. We're not going to go into detail, but we've had a couple situations, and many of you have. And there's times where you think back over your life, and you think back over your teenage years. You adults that are listening, think back over your teenage years and the things that you did and that you hid from your parents. And guess what? That guilt never went away, because you kind of feel like there's a statute of limitations, right?
Yeah, my parents know at this point. They know every time I screwed up. Like,
Yeah.
If my dad didn't know before I got home and I got away with it, now that I'm grown, I've at least told him. Like,
but those of you that are, let's say, born in the early 90s or before, that was a time that we grew up without cell phones. Was in the early and mid 90s. So anybody born before that time, I would say, generally speaking, like mid 80s and back, then news traveled faster then without cell phones and cameras than it does now. Like, when you did something bad, your parents knew before you got home. Your parents knew exactly what you did before they even asked you the question. But we try to make sure that our kids can be honest with us no matter what. And I'm not saying our kids are perfect in doing that, because we still have to pry it out of them.
Yeah, but make a point to pry it out of them, especially
right.
Especially your teenagers. Now, we don't have Allie's not teenage yet. She's
preteen. So she's a tween.
So it's close enough. But Jacob,
attitude is there.
Yes, she's got the attitude. But she still tells me everything. Jacob, sometimes I have to just pry it out of him. Like, you have this attitude today. You're a bit grouchy, or you seem a little down. What's wrong with you? The first couple of times he might say, nothing, I'm fine. But before the day is over, he's going to tell me what's wrong with him, because he knows Mama's not dropping this until I tell her.
Right. So, show of hands out there. How many people hate to hear that? What's wrong with you? Nothing.
Don't lie to me.
No, I'm just saying, like, the whole question when you say, what's wrong with you? Nothing. Nobody in any relationship wants to hear that. Nothing.
Because it means something.
It always means something is wrong. It never means nothing. I can use that double negative. It never means nothing. That means it always means something, right? And so when you get that tone, you know the tone, you know the response. What's wrong with you? What is the matter? Nothing. Nothing. Nothing's wrong with me. You know automatically that something's wrong. There is a just an attitude. You get that cold shoulder, and you know that it's time to talk. But our purpose in all of this is to make sure that all of that is established before you get into that situation. That, we just want to drive this home, that the communication, the talk times have to be there. As busy as you are, social media does not fix the communication in the home. It does not fix the communication in the relationship. A text message or something like that does not fix communication, because your kids know. They've been on Snapchat enough to know that once you say something, it's there. Once you send something, it's there. So they want to use a platform where it's there 1 second and gone, and then they know who screenshots it or who saves it. And being face to face fixes those situations. Well, uh, you're I know that by our tone and nothing's being misunderstood here, that you're not going to use this against me later. And that's where we want to keep that strong.
Right.
We want to keep that to where when you confess and we work this out, we don't hold it against you.
Right.
Forever.
Be sure, yeah. Make sure you give them positive
Reinforcement.
Yeah, that's the word. Positive reinforcement. I mean, hug it out at the end.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying.
And teenagers don't like to be touched either, especially by their dad.
No,
like, get away from me, creeper. Like, come here and give me a hug, boy. You ain't too old.
Right. But anyway, so Jacob's mess up this summer. At the end of the conversation, he knew that we loved him and that we forgave him for it. But also, he knew that this was not an act that was going to go unpunished.
Right.
So he ended up grounded for 3 months, the whole summer. He was grounded. Mm-hmm. Was it this summer?
No, it was
last summer.
The summer before.
Whenever it was. He was grounded the whole summer. So it didn't go unpunished, but he also knew that, hey, this is well deserved. Mom and Dad aren't doing this because they don't love me or because they're mad at me. It's because my action required punishment.
Mm-hmm. And there's also a line there, parents, where you push that button and it goes a little too far, and it's not a sign of weakness or any major issue if you go and apologize to your child.
Right.
And tell them, hey, I was angry at the time, I blew up, I'm sorry, let's fix this. And the big thing is we want to punish, like we want to go all out. We want to be judge, jury, and executioner all in the same breath. But you have to process these things, and sometimes it's best to say, hey, we talked about this and everything. Mom and I are gonna talk, and we're gonna figure out what your punishment's gonna be. So give us a little bit of time here in the next little bit, this evening or by tomorrow afternoon, whatever, set a time frame and hold to it and say, we're gonna set your punishment. And there's been so many times that we've grounded our kids for a week or 2 weeks, and they've had to live it out the entire time. And there have been times where we're like, you know what, you're supposed to be grounded for 2 weeks. You went a little over a week, you went a week and a half, and we can let you off on good behavior. How many times do our kids turn into angels when they're grounded?
Oh, every time. Every time. I don't
take that phone away.
Yes.
They turn into completely different human beings.
It's like all of a sudden they remember their chores and how to do them properly, and
right. Wow. And they do it without complaining.
They get along with their siblings.
It's almost good for the home if you can catch them in something and ground them for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Every now and then, just keep a cycle going. If you got plenty of kids, there you go. Problem solved, right? But we want to be able to put this stuff out there. A lot of people just won't really say anything. They won't give you good information. And so again, we say this every show, that we want you to like our page and share it. Not so we can be super popular or anything like that, because we're not what are those people on Instagram and stuff all the time? Influencers or nothing?
We're not?
No. I'm sorry to break your heart.
No. Shoot.
Because we have like 4 followers.
I thought that made us
popular. So this is not for us to gain any kind of fame. We want to actually be the people that can help, that can just talk about a situation and, by our experience, help you and be able to pass it along. Anything that's been given to us, we want to freely give to you. Yeah. So in return, comment. I don't care if it's on this video, but contact us and give us some comments on things that you've seen struggles with and want us to touch on, want us to make some explanations or something, or just maybe you can hit the right button and get this one to talk some more.
I think I talked a lot.
She did very good.
Yeah.
She's doing a lot better.
I only don't talk a lot because I really don't get the opportunity.
What are you trying to say?
Take it however you want.
Right. All right. So again, just comment. Tell us what you'd like us to talk about. Different topics, things like that, and anything else.
Nope. Have
All
a
right.
good night. Have a good week. Enjoy those babies.
Yeah.
See you next time.
We will see you next week. Have a great night, folks.